Hi. Um, I hope you're all doing well. I wanted to talk today. I noticed a lot of my lives now are, I've been trying to pitch this show and prepare for it for years, but then it never happens. So I thought I would just do a live for you guys. Lo and behold, here we are again. So today I wanted to talk about disaster and emergency preparedness. Now, I had spoken with someone about this many years ago. And so I was thinking a lot about, as it turns out, I have been very close to or involved in a number of natural disasters. Um, when I was going to UC Santa Cruz in the very early part of 1982, there was a very bad flood, destroyed thousands of housing units. There were landslides. There was this like 4-lane bridge across the river. It knocked most of it out. Houses were like literally flooding down the river. There were huge landslides. We were closed off from everything. No electricity, no water. And only very intermittent telephone service. Now, this is when telephone service was wired. So that really taught me that these disasters can unfold very quickly, and suddenly you'll be without a lot of resources that you normally would depend upon. So knowing the lay of the land, knowing what resources are in your area, being familiar with the people who are around you, your own personal needs, is going to make a huge difference in what it's like for you going forward in terms of these changes in circumstances. After that, I think the next thing was, I always forget which one is first. I think it was the Loma Prieta earthquake was first, 1989. I was in Albany, which wasn't too bad, but both my mom and dad were working far flung. My dad was working in San Francisco. My mom was working down on the peninsula, and she was on a BART train actually when the earthquake broke out. And there's small things. I mean, they talk about having like an emergency pack, emergency plan, a go bag. When my dad he was working in an office building, and he said he could look over and he could see the skyscrapers basically bumping each other from his window while the earthquake was going on. There was broken glass everywhere, and it happened at 5:04, which meant that there wasn't that long left of light. Now, as it happened, the Bay Bridge became completely incapacitated because one of the upper deck slabs fell down. So it took months to repair the bridge. He evacuated with some women from his office, and they noticed things like they didn't have a flashlight. The women were trying to walk in like nice office shoes. This is like 89 or something, instead of like closed toe sneakers. So they're navigating all this broken glass. This happened to me with that earthquake too. It's like I was stupid myself. I was like, oh no, because I was just in our apartment. There was broken glass everywhere. And I started walking in my bare feet because usually I don't wear shoes. And immediately I was like, you idiot. This is what they always say is put your shoes on. It wasn't that bad of a case, but these people had to walk. So this is one of the things to prepare for, which is that a lot of these type of disasters or changes in circumstances can mean that you will be walking a lot on your feet. So you want the type of shoes that will be closed toes, protect your feet, and that you can walk in a lot, that won't be giving you blisters or other problems down the road. So you can keep this in your duffel bag, your go bag, or whatever. Flashlights, right? These days, most of us have flashlights on our phones. But you need to think about how are you going to keep your phone powered, right? So you're going to want to have charging cords, or also, if you're able, a power bank, because as well in that earthquake, suddenly the electrical system was not working, right? You didn't have electrical power. And then the gas system was also shut off. And I believe there were also disruptions to water service. So you need to think about where you are normally going to be, like your home, where you work, let's say a friend or parent's home in the area, and think, well, what are we going to do if we don't have water, gas, electricity, and so on. Um, there is a lot of information. The California government website has emergency preparedness information on it. You can still access that. And they have good, it's like checklists and stuff like that. Um, and then after the, I mean, when I was in the Santa Cruz flood, I had decided because we'd already had a fall quarter, and I decided that the university, I was living in university housing, which is up on the hill overlooking uh, the bay. I had gone down the hills to downtown because it had been so wet. I figured I could get some like rubber boots or something because we've been having so much rain. Little did I know. So I was driving back up to the hill when suddenly, there just started to be this huge amounts of water, and I just this is another reason why it's a good idea to pay attention to, for example, weather forecasts. Luckily, I was able to just keep driving uphill, but I didn't really have a lot of options for anything else to do at that point. So if I'd been a little later or something, I ended up driving through a couple of feet of water at certain points. So it was really scary. Anyway, then we had my first firestorm in the tunnel fire, which happened in Oakland in 1992. It was in a situation where you had the dry winds coming from the east very fast, and there had been a fire up in the Oakland Hills. There was a ton of fuel that was very dry, and they had had a small fire and hadn't really watched it as carefully as they should have or put it out. And so it became a conflagration the next day. As it happened again, I was out driving my car because it was a beautiful day. It was kind of like when people talk about 9/11, it was such a beautiful day. This was also a beautiful day. I was out driving in the East Bay Hills, and my plan had actually been to go drive out in the hills, come up over the crest of the East Bay Hills, and then drive down through Montclair, which actually ended up being a place where there was a lot of fatalities because, and again, this is something to pay attention to, there was a choke point there of the roads. But when I got to the top of the hill, I saw something that looked like an atom bomb going off. It was a pyrocumulus cloud. I turned on the radio and they said there was a fire, and I knew from especially my grandfather, who'd been a firefighter, that you should stay away from fires, especially wildfires. So I turned around and left. As it happened, I was living in the Elmet at the time with my boyfriend and his grandmother, and so I actually went to my boyfriend's house, which is back in Castro Valley, and started calling everyone to see if they could get grandma out of there, which they did. But this is another principle for you, right? You want to have contact with people and everyone in your friend, family circle. You want to have the phone numbers of people who are out of your region, who are far away, that everyone can contact. When you have disruptions to phone service or travel or Wi-Fi service, that type of thing, then what you're going to want to be able to do is lots of times it's easier to get through to someone who is outside of your region, and then you can all connect with them. So people were connecting more with my boyfriend's parents, and also his uncle, who was in another part of the Bay Area that was unaffected by the fire. Because another thing you want to be doing is thinking about planning about what happens if the electrical, the gas, the water, the information or wireless grid goes down. We have seen recently it's very possible for natural disasters to take down grids. When we had the 2017 firestorms here surrounding the Napa Valley, we spent a better part of a week with no cell service, no Wi-Fi service, no wired internet service, no nothing. We had a emergency radio, which runs on batteries or you can crank it up. And we relied on that for information, as well as people in our area. So you want to think, how am I going to be able to access information that I need when the internet is down? We have had here in the United States over the last few years some certain times when big parts of the grid will just go away or fall down. You don't have access to the internet. So if you, for example, rely on Google Maps, what are you going to do? Right? I was looking today. There are still paper maps that you can buy online. If you are a member of AAA, you can get them from AAA, and then you can navigate through your area even if you don't have access to the internet. And especially in a disaster situation that's unfolding, emergency situation, then you are going to want to have that backup plan. I would also suggest, if you haven't used paper maps before, that you take some time orienting yourself on how to use them and to work with them in your area. Because it's a different type of way of moving through the landscape. Um, when it comes to maps and to travel, it's one of the reasons why I was able to survive those natural disasters that I was very close to epicenters of bad things happening in, is because I was familiar with the lay of the land, the type of disasters that might be unfolding, and travel. What are the travel routes, right? I had spent a lot of time in the East Bay driving back roads, so I knew how to get various places through those back roads. I also would have maps that covered those back roads as well as the main urban areas in my car. So if I got lost, I could try to figure out what the heck I was doing. Because you're not always gonna have that information available just at the internet or be able to talk into your phone and say blah, blah, blah. When we had the Tubbs fire here, it burned up a whole bunch of cell towers. Unless you have possibly a satellite phone and Elon has decided that you are worth having access to satellite technology, you're not gonna have that technology. This is why pieces of paper, pencils, and pens are coming back into style, I would say. So that is important. I would say it's also important to just drive around your town. Think, okay, if I had to evacuate because fire was coming from this direction, flood was here, what are the areas that are going to flood? How does fire usually behave? What if there is a big, I don't know, when the potholes, it's like potholes, but worse, sinkholes. Fry pencils, no, holes. What are the various forms of egress? What are you going to do? Like here, I'm on the valley floor in Napa, right? In certain situations, you're going to want to go up into the mountains, right? In other situations, you're going to want to come down out of the mountains, right? Depending if it's like fire or flood. So you need to familiarize yourself with these various routes of egress. If you have people that you are close to, make sure that you know how to get to their house and you have a couple of different backup plans for how to get there. Every town has like these weird, roads, courts, strange things, frontage roads that are kind of dead ends or that kind of sluice you into certain areas unexpectedly. It's very important to know about these things because in emergency situations, you don't want to end up trapped. On the other hand, maybe it could be a good place to have someone end up for certain circumstances, that they would be in an area where there's not going to be a lot of traffic going around and they can just sit there and try and figure out what they're going to do. What else do I have here? Communication, again, is important. You want to be aware, not of just natural disasters, but of what's unfolding around your area. There are people that are interested in ham radios that have family radios. So if you're let's say in a convoy or other situation with your family and friends, you can talk from car to car, or if you're in the same neighborhood, you could talk house to house without necessarily having to use your phones. There are emergency, how do I call it, bandwidth frequency scanners that you can use to keep on top of, excuse me, for example, fire, police, other emergency services. This can be important. I live in an area where there's a lot of people who are older and that have various health issues. So if you have a scanner, then you can know, if like for us, if you have like the EMTs coming to check on someone who's had a fall or some other medical issue, right? Then you can know, oh, it's time to check up on this neighbor and see what's happening with them and help them out. You can also have awareness of just traffic in your area and notice, for example, if there is, let's say, a regional disaster unfolding, you can see, oh, does it look like there are emergency vehicles that are going to help certain areas, or other transport vehicles that are transporting certain resources, material, personnel to various areas. So this will help you just maintain awareness of what's happening in your region. You can also use flight apps. I have one, Flight Radar 24. A lot of them can just be used through a web browser as well, but they're very interesting. You can keep track if you listen. We have some flight paths that go over us here, and it's kind of just an interesting skill. You can hear when there is a plane going over, and then check on the flight app and see what it says about that time of plane and type of plane, and train your ear to listen for, well, for example, this morning we heard a small biplane go over, and I looked up and found out that it was actually a historical biplane. We have them that they tend to fly over the Yountville Veterans Home here on patriotic occasions to honor the veterans. You'll have, like, let's say, maybe about 10 or 11 of these old historic biplane people flying their planes over the Yountville home, which is kind of cool. And it's fun to see them. But you can train your ear. I mean, I can recognize, business jets, larger jets, medical transport helicopters. We have those over here, and so on and so forth. So this will help you just kind of be more tuned into what's going on in your region and your area, so you can plan what makes the most sense for you to do. Let's see what else is going up here. Go bags. You can find a lot of lists for go bags, and it's basically what is going to be important for you and the people that you are with. Also your pets. If you need to bug out, as it were, and go someplace else and hang out for a few days. So you're going to want to have, I need to redo mine. You're going to want to have like a change of clothes. As I spoke before about shoes that are not going to bother your feet, you probably want to have some moleskin in there if you tend, or me, and tend to get blisters and stuff like that. Good supportive comfy socks that aren't going to give you problems. Possibly a hat for protection from the sun. You might want, for example, goggles and masks. Depending, when COVID happened, we here in California, in firestorm country, were well placed as far as masks, because we had all these masks to protect against the smoke. Smoke can also be very irritating for your eyes, so goggles can be a good idea as well to have. You might want to have whistles in case you get lost or need to communicate with someone, or let's say you find someone who's injured or something, to kind of help alert others around you as to what's going on. We have an emergency preparedness group in our neighborhood, and this is another thing that's smart. If you can find people in your neighborhood to do it with too, if you can pool your resources and try out some of these things. We had a trial run of emergency alert kind of system here, and everyone's deaf, so so whistles were not enough. So I've been thinking about bullhorns, right? They could be loud, and then also you can give information about, oh no, it's a flooding hazard, there is a gas leak, whatever it is. Then you can convey that information as well, so people are better prepared to know what to do in that circumstance. The other things that are important in your go bag are usually food and water and then your medications, if you have any medications, and if you have room for any first aid, spare glasses, because you don't wanna be stumbling around. Fortunately, I got a cataract surgery a few years ago, and they put in, long distance, correction, so I need to use reading glasses, but now if it's the zombie apocalypse and I'm wandering around without glasses, I'll still be able to see, which is pretty amazing because for the vast majority of my life, this was not the case. So yeah, if you can manage if you still have health insurance, you can get cataract surgery. I recommend it. It's good to be able to see. Um, Ah, the other thing is if you have, any important papers, like a passport, house mortgage, uh, um, like your bank account information, health insurance cards, copies of your prescriptions, uh, your emergency contact information, people that you wanna get in touch with, charger, phone bank, all that type of stuff is important for your go bag. But as I said, there's a lot of lists out there that can help, walk you through the process. And then also don't forget about your pets. You're gonna want to have, food, water dish, water for them. And then it's important for most pets to have, uh, a lead and, like a harness or collar, but, crates can be incredibly helpful because then you just kinda stick them in there and, especially if you crate train them, they're gonna be, uh, calmer because it's some familiarity, and then you don't have to worry about them running around, and trying to control them. So they can just, chill out in there, or if they're Oliver, bark to his heart's content, but at least you know he's okay. So, I think that, cats can be, crate trained as well. So, if you can, do that for your furry friends, that's very good. Um, it's important to have if you're going to be stuck inside of your house for any type of a shelter in place type of situation, food and water are very important. You want stuff that's gonna be shelf stable, so you can have, like, dried fruit, beans, oatmeal, grains, canned stuff, and then you can also get, shelf stable water, but with all these things, you need to go through, like, a couple times a year or once a year, pardon me, and, check your expiration dates because, for example, a shelf-stable water will expire as well. If you have, like, a bottle of bleach around, check for expiration on that too, but that can have a lot of uses for, if you have, creepy water, you can, sterilize it through using bleach, which takes a lot less. It's gross, it's not ideal, but it will keep you from getting sick, and it will take a lot less energy and time than if you're trying to, like, boil it for 5 minutes on the stove. You just, like, lose huge amounts of water, you just steam, um, if you try and do that. And then sanitation and health is incredibly important in these type of situations because you want to be able to, take care of yourself as much as possible. You want to be able to evacuate quickly if need be. Um, so if you are in good health, this is, better, and more easy. You can, are in a better position to look out for your neighbors who may be, in need. Um, and, so sanitation, again, you can look all this stuff up online, but, like, wash your hands, wear a mask, wipe things down. There are ways to, God forbid, but if the, sewage system is not working so great, right, there's information in there on how you can, flush using, water, like, gray water, if you collect it, or you can do a thing of, using, like, one of those 5-gallon buckets and then lining it with a couple of, uh, garbage bags and putting bleach in there, and I mean, it's not ideal, but it is much better to be able to handle these situations in a sanitary manner and to know how to do that than everyone getting sick. Same with food preparation, like, wash your hands before you prepare food, wash your hands before you eat. and pay attention to it, and make sure that the, like elderly kids, your stoner cousin or whoever is staying on top of it too, because any of these types of situations is going to be a lot worse if you get sick and you don't have to. So the more you can do to prevent that, it's going to be, you're going to be in a much better situation. Thus, masks and goggles, gloves, things like that, have this purpose of helping on that as well. I wanted to get back to knowing, like, especially when it comes to evacuation or, moving in and out of neighborhoods. You want to get to know the neighborhood that you're in. You're going to want to know all the ways that you can evacuate, by car, by foot, bicycle, skateboard if you have that. I saw there's a lot of footage from the UPS cargo plane that crashed very tragically on takeoff in Louisville a while back. And there was some footage of a man who was driving an 18-wheeler, and he was in a big a truck yard, pulled in there, and they had the dash cam looking out and then the dash cam looking at him. And you see the plane start to crash, and he looks around and he just like jumps out of the trailer and just runs. And I had seen online a lot of people were criticizing him for this because they're like, well, I would have just floored it and got out of there. It's like, first of all, you can floor an 18-wheeler all you want. It's not going, those things are slow to get off the dime, right? Also, he knew the choke point, that there's only a small interest to get into that yard. How many maneuvers does it take these trucks to get in and out of those yards? Does he know if there's another truck stuck in there or another car coming through there? No, he doesn't know. So as a human being, right, he's able to move much faster than the truck, and he's able to get through a much smaller space, right? This is the way that you need to think in these type of emergency situations. If you are in an area where there's a lot of streets that are crisscrossing, and you need to get out of there, but you have checked it out beforehand and you know that there's not a lot of fences, it may be better to just ditch the car and run. We used to do this as kids a lot when we were being naughty, but also to escape sex criminals who were trying to get us as kids, right? And it's also important to be able to know what you can see from where are the choke points? Like, okay, where are you going to have like a lot of traffic going to one area? Where's going to be the main thoroughfares that go up and down or around your area? So you can watch those for traffic. And let's say you're trying to evacuate and you notice that there is a big backup on the main thoroughfare out of there. You may want to try and choose another path for your evacuation. And because you've been studying your maps and driving around, you should have a better idea about what your options are, right? If you can find a high ground or a place that's higher up, you're going to be able to have a better view of what's happening. Let's say, hi, Mom. She's coming in for the porch, right? So if you are at Oliver, that is your own grandma. So if you're in an area that's kind of flat, let's say there's going to be certain, and you want to get a more bird's eye view of what's happening. Oh, there's your roller right there, Mom. You can put your stuff on it, and then there you go. You want to get a better view of what's happening in your neighborhood. And let's say there's a fire or there's some flooding happening, land movement. If you have a way to, get up higher, then you can see. If you're up on your roof, you could, if you're scared of being on the roof, you could lay down, right, and get next to the edge, and then you can look out and see what's going on. then make your decisions on what you would like to do after that. I think that it's important to kind of get a handle on the resources that you use as far as things like, food supply, gasoline is very important. They always recommend that you keep at least a half a tank of gas in your car if you're in any area where you might need to evacuate. And I think this is a good idea. Because then you can move a little bit more spontaneously. Um, it's interesting too, because I noticed when I was in Pleasant Hill, we lived about half a block, a little bit up the hill from a gas station. And one day I heard like these big noises, like very kind of sharp. And it sounded to me like if you ever seen those pallets of plasterboard, like if someone had a big pallet of plasterboard and just like dropped it, just like smack. So finally I go out and I look down, I started to hear sirens and helicopters, and it turned out that someone had driven into the gas pump at a gas station and it started leaking gas and it caught on fire. And I always think of this guy, I don't know his name, but the young man who was working at the gas station, there's a kind of a switch you can do to kind of cut off the power and the flow of gas from the tanks underground up to the gas pumps. So I always thought that was very interesting that you could just kind of like restrict the flow that way, which is good to know in case you have that type of an accident. But that was pretty crazy. We had like 4 helicopters just like right over our apartment, just kind of like hanging out there. And we went down and there were just that foam everywhere. It looked like a big marshmallow. It looked like Ghostbusters after they killed the marshmallow man. There's like goo everywhere. So, and then one thing that will definitely help you to have a better resiliency in the event of any type of emergency or disaster is if you have people around you, you keep in contact with your family and friends and know how to contact them. And then also keep in contact with people in your neighborhood and wider community. If you're a member of a church or an interest group, just, have like a neighborhood chat. I have on my own phone. I have all my neighbors, like on our block, all our neighbors' phone numbers, and I put the name of our street in there so I can very easily find their phone numbers and who they are in case I need to contact them for any reason. And it's come in handy more than once. So yeah, if you can get out there and talk to your neighbors, and if you want to take it to this extent, my dad and his wife are part of a neighborhood preparedness group. You can find materials about this, I believe, on the California government website, but you can look at preparedness from like a block level or a neighborhood level and have meetings and say, okay, who is going to be in charge of this, who has, if you have like 1 or 2 people who know how to shut off gas and have those wrenches, that's really helpful, and know who those people are. If you start smelling gas and it's a wide regional situation and you can't get through to the gas company, then you can be in a position to shut the gas off. Or if the water's leaking or a water main is broken or something like that, you shut off the water. So people have those type of skills, first aid skills. But you won't know that unless you get together with your neighbors and start talking about this and, try and do your best to keep in touch and figure out what's going on, keeping track of, who's the person who's vulnerable for whatever reason, how are we going to kind of keep an eye on them and help them out if they need it. So I think that's most of it. Also, first aid is really good to know. If you're going to take a first aid course or something, you never know when you're going to need it. But I think that is about it. I think the main thing is if you can know your surroundings, just in terms of kind of the natural lay of the land, type of disasters that might be prone or that might be happening in the near future, what seems to work, what doesn't. Know the people that are also interested in community preparedness and network with them, maybe have some fun with them, and just try and keep your health and sanitation and things together. And yeah, keep your maps, keep your numbers of people that you want to contact with you, get a go bag together. Yeah, and you can survive these kind of crazy times that crop up from time to time. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. But I just wanted to come on here today and talk about this a little bit because it seems like as we go through time, these issues keep cropping up. And if you've made it this far, I wanted to let you know that I want to dedicate this live stream to Mr. Edwards, our high school science teacher. When we were in high school, you couldn't teach about birth control. So what he did was he had a big couple of days where we talked all about the human reproductive system, what it takes to make a baby, and all the things that could possibly happen that could uh, interfere with this process occurring. Uh, so yeah, so I thought that, yeah, you can go back and watch this again with that in mind. You guys take care.